Hey everyone! Before we begin, we will have new Hylian Games Cast videos up every day, new gaming and Nintendo news videos every day, new Zelda theories or top 10 list videos every week, and even more. To do all of this, we need your help and support. If you would like early access to all of these new videos, shoutouts, being a guest in our videos, or having your question answered or topic discussed, then please visit patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can help support Jesse, Daniel, Chublima, and myself on all of the work we do here on the Hylian Gamescast. Once again, thank you for your continued support.
Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the rumored or teased, whatever you want to call it, Aonuma hinted at a Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD coming. He actually, not just once, but as we're going to find out from this article from Game Informer, apparently he has hinted at it on 2 separate nights for 2 different concert events. So Game Informer's post on this, because I feel, sorry about that little air burst. Game Informer's post on this is the most detailed that I was able to find. We're not going to go through all of it, but we're going to go through the first few paragraphs because it is it's where all of the details are. The rest of it just goes on to explain kind of the review and audience thoughts on Skyward Sword, going into the motion control problems and things they could fix and stuff, which is what we're going to be talking about. So, Game Informer says, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is one of the last Wii games produced by Nintendo and one of the most divisive games in the series. While unpopular with the Zelda fandom, the game scored well critically and is known as one of the only 3D Zelda games that has never gotten ported or remastered. The game relied heavily on its motion controls for combat and puzzles, and a port to a system with a more traditional control scheme would involve massively retooling its controls, something Nintendo typically does not to do with remasters. Is that a typo? Typically does not to do with, does not do, does not do with remasters, okay. A hint from the producer of the Zelda series over the weekend, though, might indicate that Nintendo's looking into it. 2 concerts were held in Osaka, Japan over the weekend with a special surprise for the evening session. According to attendees, Zelda chief IG Aonuma came out at the end of the show to deliver a special address. As an opening line, Aonuma teased the people, hoping for an announcement by saying, according to translations, "I know what you're thinking, Skyward Sword on Switch, right?" And the audience applauded. It's unclear if Aonuma was joking, but he does not have a tendency matter-of-factly talk about future Zelda projects while they're on his mind, which is kind of wrong, because that's basically all he's been doing since Breath of the Wild released. It goes on, Skyward Sword's famously divisive. It goes on talking about the drama with the motion control. A lot of people loved it, a lot of people hated it. A lot of people just hated the game because when it came out, we were like a few years into the PS3, Xbox 360 cycle where everyone was getting like HD 720p games, and then Nintendo comes out with, a 480p game on the Wii. By comparison, it's not going to look as great, but they did as much as they could with the art style to make it look as good as it possibly could on the Nintendo's, almost said Switch, on the Nintendo Wii. A lot of people may not know, but they actually ported it to the Wii U along with Metroid Prime Trilogy, but it was just a port that ran in like the standard 480p, but it looked a little bit better because it was running through an HDMI cable as opposed to the red, yellow, white cables that the Wii mostly used. So everyone...
And it still used the same... You still had to use your Wii remotes and nunchucks, so...
So the question is, because I've seen people on Twitter, and I actually explained this to someone, if I can remember their username, I will mention it, but they replied to Super Metal Dave 60, I forgot what it was. Anyways, so he was replying to someone who was talking about Skyward Sword HD, and he was upset because he's like, I don't want Skyward Sword HD. I don't want, why are they making all of these remakes? They need to focus on their new games. So
that's not how it works.
To clear up, all of the ports and remakes, they do take a bit of time away from like Aonuma or whoever the lead developers are among all of the projects. But the team that is specifically working on these games are not Nintendo. So this goes into another segment that we'll have in another video that I'll be posting tomorrow for the people that are watching this not live. We're going to be talking about their new Zelda game that they've mentioned, the big game that's coming after Breath of the Wild. So Nintendo at all times has two different teams dedicated to working on Zelda games. They have their handheld team that works on games like A Link Between Worlds, Spirit Tracks, and then they have their home console team that specifically works on like Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, the big, huge Zelda games, the ones that do take like 5 years for them to make. And then they also have third parties. If we go back a few years ago, there were like 5 to 6 different Zelda games all in development at the same time. A lot of people think that Nintendo just has 1, maybe 2 Zelda games in development at once, but at all times they have 2, 3, sometimes even more. So at that time we had Nintendo was just a couple of years coming off of Skyward Sword. They were in pre-production of Zelda Wii U, which would become Breath of the Wild. At that same time, they were working on Wind Waker HD so they could learn how to develop easier on the Nintendo Wii U, because they hadn't worked on a HD game before, that team specifically, so it was easier to take a game they were familiar with and adapt it to the engine than it would have been to just learn how to build a game from the ground up on the engine. So that's why they made Wind Waker HD, and it helped them create Breath of the Wild faster than they would have if they wouldn't have created Wind Waker HD. And then, while that team was working on those 2 games, because they were split up, one was coming up with ideas and stuff for Breath of the Wild, while the other team was learning the mechanics of the engine, building Wind Waker HD. And then we had their handheld team, which was coming off of A Link Between Worlds. And then they had Grezzo, which had just finished Ocarina of Time 3D, working on Majora's Mask 3D. And then you had the team that was working on Hyrule Warriors. And then you had the team Tantalus, which was beginning work on Twilight Princess HD. So like in that 1 to 2 year time frame, there's like 6 different Zelda games being worked on at the same time. And the Twilight Princess HD concept took almost no time away from Breath of the Wild, just as Skyward Sword HD, if it is being worked on, won't be taking time away from whatever the next big Zelda game is, because whatever their handheld game is, they've been working on it for 3 to 4 years, I guess, since Triforce Heroes has released. So it literally should be announced and releasing any time, because 4 years is almost twice as long as any of the other handheld Zelda games. And then we have Aonuma confirming that they had started working on the follow-up to Breath of the Wild, which he said he wanted to, and this goes into a little bit of what Game Informer was talking about with the game coming sooner. They had mentioned that it was like, oh, is it the Triforce Heroes team or whatever? And then the host said something along the lines of not necessarily. And what he was referring to, which we'll get into more depth into it on the next section, but what he was referring to is during the interview that they had with Aonuma when Breath of the Wild first released. So everyone's talking about the news as if it's something new, like, oh, we found out something new, when really it's stuff we already knew, because Aonuma told them in an interview, you can watch it on YouTube, he and Miyamoto are both being interviewed, And he says that he wants to take the multiplayer aspect from Triforce Heroes and build something using the engine of Breath of the Wild. So they're working on their handheld game and their home console game. So what developer would be working on Skyward Sword HD if not Nintendo themselves? Well, Tantalus is the most likely option, as like they are what is called a port studio. Their entire focus is, while they might make a few of their own original games, their main focus is to take other third-party games and port them to the Nintendo Switch. So games that are made for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, they take those games and try to make them work as best they can on the Nintendo Switch. Games like Doom or whatever, like they're not necessarily the ones that worked on the Doom ports, but that's what they do. And that's what they did with Twilight Princess for the Wii U. They took a GameCube Wii game and did the best they could to bring it to the Wii U. So another team that Nintendo has let take control of the Zelda series for a while was Grezzo. At first, they worked on Four Swords Anniversary Edition for the 3DS. It was like a download-only thing, and it had a few updates in it that made it different from the original version. And then they did a good job with that, so Nintendo let them work on Ocarina of Time 3D. They let them have a little bit more freedom. That's why you've seen some of the changes in it. There were like textures that were different. There was like, you could find the Book of Medora like hidden in different places, and there was just fun little changes added to it. And that game was really successful. Ocarina of Time 3D was one of the best-selling Nintendo 3DS games. It got really high reviews, so Nintendo allowed them to have even more freedom with their next game, which was Majora's Mask 3D. And they had changed a bunch of stuff in that. Of course, Aonuma would have been the one with the final say-so, but even with him saying yes or no, Grezzo's the one, like, they are the team that worked on all of the new stuff, changing around some of the side quests, how the time system works with the Bomber's Notebook. They added in 2 fishing ponds. Instead of like just 1, they just added in 2. They changed where the bank is. They changed the boss fights. It released. It got a lot of reviews, but there were a few people that were angry about the small changes that they had made. So with them getting more and more freedom with these remakes on the 3DS, Nintendo let them work on an entirely new Zelda game, which was Triforce Heroes. But with Triforce Heroes, Nintendo also created a brand new team. So it was like a mix between Nintendo and Grezzo working on Triforce Heroes together. And in the same way that they let Grezzo remake a game, it turned out well, so then they allowed Grezzo to make their own brand new game that wasn't a remake. I think Nintendo will likely do the same with Tantalus, to where Tantalus was tasked with taking a game that was on the GameCube and the Wii and porting it to the Wii U. It did really well. They allowed them to have a lot of freedom in the game. There was a bunch of textures that was different, lighting was different. They cut down on the Tears of Light. They added in an entirely new dungeon. They changed the way that you would turn into a wolf. You could just like do it with the press of a button. They added in the whole map functionality with the gamepad and everything. There's a lot of stuff that they changed, and a lot of the improvements were making the game better than the original. So since that game came out, sold well, everyone liked the changes for the most part, it would make sense that since Nintendo is teasing Skyward Sword HD, that they would, if you think about it, you have a Wii game, like a Wii Zelda game with motion controls, and you want a team to port that game or to remake it for the Nintendo Switch. You would go to a team that already worked on a motion control Zelda game that was on the Wii. Even though they had the GameCube version, they also worked with the what was it? The Wii version. Yeah, sorry, I lost thought. And then the final fact to this, before we all start actually discussing it, because I wanted to get out all of the facts, I did a lot of research on this actually. So I forgot his name, but the person who was in charge at Tantalus, because they have several different development teams, like Nintendo, Capcom, everyone has different development teams. There's teams that work on Zelda, Mario, Donkey Kong, everything. Tantalus also has 2 or 3 different teams. And the main developer or producer, the person who was in charge at Tantalus that overseen the Twilight Princess remake, that project, from what I could tell, took about a year or 2 for them to fully remake the game and release it and everything. And since then, Tantalus has released a few different games. So if you just look at that, it's like, oh, well, they can't work on Skyward Sword because they've been releasing like 2 games every year. But that specific person who is in charge of that team hasn't released a game in over a year, which means he's been working on something for over a year that we don't know about. And since Tantalus is the most likely development team to work on a Wii Zelda game that has motion controls and move it to the Switch, because that's what they did with Twilight Princess, even though it also had its GameCube version, all of the clues fit together. Aonuma wouldn't hint at this if it wasn't happening. He gave a lot of hints in the same way for Majora's Mask 3D, which was kind of obvious when they released Ocarina of Time 3D. And they were like, well, if the fans want it, then we'll make it. And they just kept saying that over and over and over. And then 4 years later, Grezzo releases Majora's Mask 3D. So Nintendo is known to tease it, which is why, like I mentioned, it was odd that Game Informer had the thing to where it says Aonuma doesn't have a tendency to matter-of-factly talk about future Zelda projects, because they had literally talked about both of their new Zelda games they were working on to Game Informer when they had their Breath of the Wild interview, which is really odd. So, and then with even A Link Between Worlds, like 5-6 years ago, they had mentioned like what kind of Zelda game are they going to make for the 3DS. And the entire time, Aonuma and Miyamoto said they wanted to use the 3D capability of the 3DS and see what they could do applying it to a remake of A Link to the Past. And then Aonuma and Miyamoto got into a disagreement where Miyamoto wanted to remake the game, Aonuma wanted to make a brand new game, so they ended up compromising, and you get a half remake, half new game. I like to refer to it as a reimagining, which is A Link Between Worlds. So, like almost every game, Nintendo, Aonuma specifically, has hinted and mentioned what he's working on. So that quote from Game Informer is really, really odd. But then again, Game Informer focuses on everything, where I just focus on Zelda. So, you know, if I was spread a bit thin on the Zelda series, I probably wouldn't know all the facts either. Anyways, that's all the facts we got out of the way. So if anyone's wondering why they haven't been talking, it's because I wanted to get through all of the facts that I have from all of the interviews and stuff before we got into the discussion. That way everyone was caught up. One of the last videos, someone had commented saying like, oh, we're 3 minutes into the video, or we're 5 minutes into the video and no one else has talked but him. And then it's like, well, he's the host. He has to read the news before they can discuss it. They can't discuss it if they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. So it was a really weird...
That, or we give the audience no context and we just...
Yeah. It's like... but yeah, so with all of the facts about Skyward Sword, I guess the final thing is, when would it likely release? All of the past remakes, going back from, I think, A Link Between Worlds, which began as a remake, Majora's Mask, I'm not really sure about Ocarina of Time, someone can look that up, but Majora's Mask 3D, Triforce Heroes as well, which wasn't a remake, Twilight Princess HD, and even Breath of the Wild. They all released in like February or March. So if Skyward Sword is coming up, I believe it would likely be a February or March 2019 game, because I don't think they would release a remake that a lot of people didn't necessarily like in the holiday season when it's going up against probably like Metroid Prime 4 and whatever the new Pokemon game is. So yeah.
We got a super chat.
Were you waiting to say that?
I was waiting for it.
Nice. $1.
Jonathan.
$1 for Ilya to say banana in German. When was that? 11:53? It was just now.
Just now.
Just now. It's something that happened a little bit.
It's not even impressive, guys. It's literally not even impressive. It's literally die banana. I'm so sorry.
Oh, he said I'll super chat when Jesse's finished so I don't ruin the bit.
Yeah, no, he's so polite. He wanted to super chat. He wanted to get that banana.
Whereas Daniel wanted me to interrupt and just do it while Jesse was. He wanted me to do it while you were talking. He just wanted me to go die banana.
Yeah, just to whisper it.
It's like
The French version is called Z banana, to be honest.
Oh my goodness.
Banana. Oh my god.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan.
Oh.
You are so the man.
Oh my god. I am crying right now. Oh my god.
Stream just falls apart.
Jesse worked so hard to give all that information, and it's finished with me saying banana in German unimpressively.
Die banana.
What's up, mama? We're making that a command and see in Discord. Gibbs, get on it.
Whoo-wee.
It's all good, though, right?
Sorry, Jesse, you okay?
Jesse, why do you invite us back? Why do you invite us back?
I'm sorry.
You guys are my friends.
I've orchestrated something terrible.
Yes, it's Daniel's fault.
Right. For everyone in the chat, I turned everyone's volume up because I noticed it was a little low in my mixer, so I was able to turn the volume up, and then I could just turn down my volume on the microphone, so it's all good.
But look at this. People are happy. Javier says LOL with like 3 happy faces. Worth it.
Amanda, best podcast.
Best podcast, yes.
Oh, Cliff.
D banana for Smash.
Yes, Cliff. D banana for Smash.
I could just sing at that.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Oh
it
no,
is incredibly hot.
Driven him away.
This time, no controversial
now
jokes.
I'm imagining. See now. Ugh, that stupid joke, which apparently no one understood.
That joke
happened in Smash. Banana confirmed for Smash.
D banana. And
well, I'm thinking of Donkey Kong. Oh, banana.
Not Donkey Kong in German. Oh, die banana.
You better be making it, Gibbs. You better be making that command in Discord.
Oh.
We pay you the small bucks for a reason.
Good one, I'm lurking, but that was hilarious. Oh, thank you. Also, that joke you made, Ilya, like, I wasn't in that episode of the podcast, but it made me laugh very hard. I just want that.
I could have changed the beginning for something else, and it literally wouldn't have changed the joke at all.
No, the joke was hilarious. Also, hello, Retro.
I thought it was a good joke as well.
I should go to bed. That's what he says. Yet here you are, Retro.
So, starting with let's start with Ilya to my left.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on all of this? Since a lot of people's complaints are understandable, to where like, well, I don't want a remake if it's going to cause the next Zelda game to get delayed, but knowing that it's not. So it's like, instead of like in a 5-year time span, instead of just getting one game after 5 years, you're getting one game after 2 years, and then another game after 2 more years. So, yeah.
I mean, It's like you just explained. They're not, because I know people will still comment and be like, but, and it's like, did you not listen to that last bit? I mean, obviously the rest of us were talking about bananas in the chat, but.
So my wife just is like killing herself laughing. Just
Is she watching the podcast? Or is she just watching you?
But then, both. And then she texted me and said, "You said the joke killed you." I've made a terrible mistake, everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Skyward Sword.
Yes.
How I look at it is,
Zelda today.
let's say it would take 4 years for the next new game to come out, but it would take 5 years if they make a remake. Would you rather wait 4 years of nothing, or get something in the middle of that, even though it's going to be pushed off a little longer, and still have something while you're going at it, you know? Just saying, just saying. But as far as an actual Skyward Sword HD release, I've said before, I'll say it again, just make motion controls optional for people like me who are left-handed. It is not because I think the motion controls suck, because I have not yet played the game, because I'm left-handed and I am not coordinated, even though I danced for 15 years, so that doesn't make sense at all. Anyway, I trip upstairs. Anyway, I don't have stairs in my house, so was that a lie? I don't know. This is what it's not even midnight yet. We are 1 minute till midnight, and look what's already happened to me. Okay, the only other thing I would say is I really want this to happen, because more Zelda on my Switch? Yes. Why would I say no to that? That would be dumb. Unless it was Triforce Heroes, then I'd be like, please don't. But even then I might still buy it. Who knows? Depending on how cheap it is. Based on gameplay I have seen of the game, this is just from me watching it and what I've experienced watching it, because that's all I have thus far. Can they please get rid of one of the imprisoned fights? Would it hurt the storyline if they got rid of one of the 3 imprisoned fights?
I can't be the only one that didn't hate it that much, right?
I just wouldn't want to do it 3 times.
Like, the only time I would
but
is
nicely
when you
spaced
did
out.
the Dragon Rush thing.
Oh, yes.
Field. Yeah. That was annoying, but other than that, the story was fine.
During the story, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. When you're doing boss rush, after doing that, you've now fought the imprisoned 6 times, and then it's annoying, you know? But
because pick your poison. Do you want to do that, or do you want to do this with the story? I don't know. Let's just put them both in, so we can screw around with people.
Just screw with them.
So another thing.
And my other thing about Skyward Sword HD is I don't know how many people would agree with me on this. I feel like a lot of people would. I think. We'll see. Who knows? I think with an HD release, there should come a CD of the orchestrated music.
Yeah, like they did the last time.
Another one?
Yeah.
Yes. Give us some Breath of the Wild music on there, though.
On the Wii release, they had a collector's edition that came with a golden Wiimote. So if it came with...
I almost got that on eBay.
Yeah, so this could come with golden...
Show off?
It could come with golden Joy-Cons
that
has like the Triforce on it. Yeah.
But I did not get the golden controller, because they were cheap and this GameStop and Portland, so...
Another great thing is for the NVIDIA Shield, which has the same specs and processors and everything as the Nintendo Switch, because Nintendo collaborated with NVIDIA to make the Switch. So in their NVIDIA Shield that has all of the same stuff, in China they have an agreement where part of their collaboration was NVIDIA can release certain Nintendo games on their console. Some of these games were Twilight Princess HD and Super Mario Galaxy, which had motion control. And they converted all of the motion control in Super Mario Galaxy to just work with a normal controller. So if Nintendo is already converting motion-controlled games, although it didn't rely heavily on motion control, but it was a big feature in the game. It's how you like shot all of the star bits and did your spin thing. So it had a lot of use with motion control, and Nintendo's already been converting games that rely heavily on motion control to work on just a normal controller. And Nintendo, in the past, with all of their remakes, have been trying their best to fix all of the things that people complained about. In Wind Waker, they got rid of the long Triforce quest. Twilight Princess, they heavily shortened the Tears of Light segments. In Majora's Mask 3D, they made the time system and the Bomber's Notebook quests a lot easier. I think you can like play the Song of Time to skip to a certain time, as opposed to just going to the next day.
6 hour increments, or not 6, sorry, like 6 o'clock increments, 12-hour increments.
Yeah,
also,
that was the same as well. And then,
Jesse, Jonathan in the chat says your mic is a bit low compared to everyone else.
I raised everyone else up. I can
but
raise.
Now you're too low. You gotta raise yourself, man.
Hello, 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 hello. All right, I know what to do. You guys keep talking. So.
Okay. I had a thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Considering
thought.
the motion control. Exactly.
You said it to me earlier, so I had to say it.
I did say it to you earlier. Considering what was it talking about? Motion controls.
We're talking about thoughts.
no.
THOUGH.
Hello, hello. Is this good? I am louder now. Okay.
Considering the motion controls, it would be good to convert them. For another reason to convert them to regular controllers is because the Switch can be played on the go, and I don't want to try using motion controls on an airplane or in a car. I'd rather not. Just saying.
There are a few games that are motion control only on the Switch that
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that you have to play motion control. There's also games that are entirely touchscreen on the Switch, to where you cannot put it in dock mode and play it. Although if you do put it in dock mode, it shows up on the TV. You just can't use the touchscreen.
Just start touching your TV.
Yeah, so although...
Get a touchscreen TV.
Yeah, since 90% of the Nintendo Switch games are meant to be played in docked mode and handheld mode, there are games that can only be played in docked mode, and there are games that can only be played in handheld mode. And I think we'll see more of that as the years goes on. I think Nintendo will release games that are... where they just can't be played on the handheld mode. They need to be docked, similar to games that can only play on the new 3DS. So, but that's just my thoughts. Like in like 3 or 4 years, but then maybe they'll have like the Switch Pro or whatever that they've also kind of teased, thanks to what is it? Job listings? Yeah. I was gonna say interviews, but it wasn't interviews. All right. Yeah, Ilya, do you want to finish what you're saying before we go to Jacob?
That was pretty much it. Give me the soundtrack. Get rid of motion controls. That's pretty much it. But do give it to me. Now!
Nice.
For free! I'm just...
For free. I want it all, and I want it for free.
Yeah, so were you a fan of the other Tantalus Zelda game?
It's too late in the evening. What was the other one?
The Twilight Princess?
I haven't played the HD one yet.
Okay.
I played the GameCube one. I have the HD one. I just haven't sat down and played it because my Wii U is in the living room.
It's the best version of Twilight Princess.
It is. Out of
I'm
all...
excited for it.
Technically, all 4 versions, it is the best.
There's only 3 versions.
No, we just talked about this. There's the NVIDIA Shield version, which is actually... Shield. The NVIDIA Shield version is at a higher resolution than the Wii U version.
Okay, because I had the GameCube version, which I never finished it. Played in my cousin's house over a little bit, and then I got the Wii one, and then I was like, well, shoot, it's backwards. No thanks. And then I bought the Wii U one, and now I just need to play it. I bought it like 8 months ago.
Oops.
But that's pretty much it from me.
All right. Jacob, our guest, what are your thoughts on all of this?
It seems inevitable that we're gonna get Skyward Sword on the Switch, and same for Ocarina of Time. We just don't know when. I'm just going off a little bit of a rabbit trail. Ocarina of Time should be coming out this year because it's 20 years old. That's old as me, for crying out loud, which is weird to say coming from me.
Wow, you're such a baby. You're only 20. I can't talk.
Shut up.
Yeah, you're.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, I also want to state
I'm 23.
that since I completely forgot about this. Since we are talking about Skyward Sword, I have a friend who worked on Skyward Sword and is responsible for naming Groose, who was on my channel like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So pretty awesome.
Groose is on the loose.
Yeah. Like literally the guy who's
story character arcs.
Yeah, like the Groose on the loose, all those memes would not exist if it was not for him naming him Groose, because he would have another name and they would have to find another meme that rhymed with the name. Because regardless of what he's named, they're gonna find something to rhyme with it because he's just such a great character.
Yeah. Unless they named him Juice.
Juice. No, they had to name him.
What does that have to do with the bird?
Yeah, that was the thing.
Bird juice, gravy.
The people
See, you
from
said bird juice, and I think of the white poo from pigeons.
Yeah, but the people from Nintendo of Japan, like Aonuma and everyone, specifically told them, like, all of the names need to be a reference to a bird. And then every time I see Groose, I think of Biff Tannen from Back to the Future. So I even had a joke in one of my videos. I think it was the Skyward Sword best and worst of. I put a scene with Biff Tannen in there.
I love that comparison.
Yeah. All right, Jacob. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So as I was saying, like, it seems inevitable at this point. I'm already talking about like Ocarina of Time should be on the Switch. Wait till next year. It'll probably happen, or probably a year down the line before the next main Zelda game. If the producer and director of the game, crying out loud, teases it twice at the same symphony but at different areas, it's already confirmed in my opinion. You're hinting at it, it'll be coming. I think they'll announce it probably after the Game of the Year award show. Like it doesn't make sense to announce it at the Game of the Year. It sets like big. Like Skyward Sword, wouldn't be that big on the Switch. I don't think that's like something that you Nintendo Direct or something. Something like Metroid Prime 4, for example, would be the best option to like post in a Game of the Year show. Like just show a little teaser trailer and finally give like the release date. Like just say 2019 or something. Like summer, fall, whatever. Holiday, if it makes sense. Yeah, I think that they will probably announce it sometime in like after the Game of the Year award show, probably sometime in December or in January, and then release it kind of like what they've done in the past with their HD remakes, like and Twilight Princess both came out early, so I think they'll do the same thing. To be honest, I don't know what they would do to like trim it down, kind of like what they did with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, like. In the Swift sale that took out a lot of stuff, and then they also got rid of the like trimmed down a little bit on the Triforce quest. What you guys said for the Twilight Princess, they took out a bunch of stuff. What was the dungeon called again? Was it the secret dungeon?
The Cave of
Shadows?
Of
Ordeals?
I thought that was already in like the Wii and GameCube versions. I remember playing that.
The Cave of Ordeals was.
Yeah.
I think Cave of Shadows was the Wii
Ordeals,
U edition.
Yeah.
And then they probably renamed it. Okay.
One you had to go through is Highland.
Same.
Yeah. One you had to go through is Highland, the other was Wolf.
Is Wolf. Okay, that makes sense.
That is
I thought that
yeah.
For Skyward Sword, the only thing I could think about trimming down, I think, would... No idea what they could trim down. There's nothing on like minimal wrong that they can trim down. Like nothing they can do besides that. And like make it like it's also hard to like trim that down. I don't know what else they can trim down.
Warping.
It's like everything else is fine.
There's
Yeah,
no
warping,
proper fast travel. So just gotta fix that. Bird statues act like warp points, like shrines or Breath of the Wild almost. Instead of having to fly up every time, fly to the next hole and then go down and pick your thing. You can just do it from the statue. That's the only trimmed down thing I can kind of think of.
Yeah.
I don't think outside box brush, but that's hard enough. But I think what Daniel said, it's like the only thing that you can do. Like everything else is perfect about the game. Like besides people that struggle with motion control, which I think they did not. I appreciated it.
Yeah.
So it's like give better motion controls for like people like Ilya and this less limited ability to use, or just make controllers for kind of because I don't think it would affect the Skyward Strike at all, to be honest. So any other.
So
they're trying to make it easier.
I played through The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on the Dolphin emulator, and I mapped all of the controls to an Xbox 360 controller, to where if you wanted to swing the sword, you would hold down the R2 button, and then if you moved the stick, the analog stick up, Link would swing up. If you moved it to the right, Link would swing to the right. So they could do something to where they, instead of like pressing A or B to swing the sword, you would just like flick the thumbstick, and then he would swing in that direction. And then if you wanted to do like a skyward strike, you could just like click it in, and then he would do a banana.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, you can make adjustments with button controls too. And okay, previous Zelda games have already had this, where you can control the motion of Link's sword swinging as far back as Ocarina of Time. Like a timed analog stick pushes with button presses. You can change whether you're swinging left, right, stabbing, vertical, horizontal, and of course spin attacks. All of that you could do on the N64. So there's a lot of things, if you map it in a similar way, that could work without motion controls. I like the motion controls, actually. It was one of the charming things about the game, but I still think it would I still think it's a good option, because I know it's a turnoff for a lot of people. I'd probably play with it, but I know a lot of people just are turned off by just the idea of it. And I think that also part of the Switch's portability would be negated by having to play it in docked mode with the motion controls, you know? So that sort of removes some of the appeal of the console as well. Totally what Jacob was saying as well. I agree. Like if Onuma is mentioning it not just at one concert as a throwaway comment, but at 2 consecutive shows, it's too deliberate to be anything other than a tease or a confirmation.
I want to say we know that he at least mentioned it in one concert, but we don't know that he's mentioned it at 2. This is from Game Informer, who were
they supposedly said
Game Informer says that they did it at 2, which if they did, that means they'll likely do it at each of the different showings that they have, which is really cool, by the way. They streamed it online to where you could buy like an online ticket to watch the concert digitally. So that's a thing. If people want to do that, it'd be really cool.
Oh. In the chat, Abigail Garber suggests another really good trim down there. She said, Game Explain discussion, they suggested the remake letting you also fly your Loftwing at night.
Yeah.
Because that's a weird, it was a really weird restriction in the first game, and it totally killed me the first time. I was in Skyloft and I just like jumped off.
Sleep or something?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I guess, I don't know. But
they have the
first time.
They have the guards that fly around.
Fly at night.
Right. But the first time I was playing, I just leapt off the edge. And I was like, why is my bird not coming? Oh God, help me, I've made a terrible mistake.
So since Abigail mentioned the Game Explain discussion on Skyward Sword, I brought this up before we started this podcast, but my first podcast that I had, called the Nerdvana podcast, wasn't a great name,
puns!
But yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with puns.
It was actually from a TV show where, what was it? King of the Nerds was the name of it, and the like mansion that they stayed in, that they all competed in, they called Nerdvana because it was where all the nerd people, like it was basically heaven for nerds. It had like a bunch of really nerdy, cool stuff and like everything. So I used that name because I really liked the show. And anyways, on that first podcast, the old Chiblima was a girl named Amanda, and the old Daniel was a friend from high school named Simon. And
I'm sure it wasn't the other way around.
yeah, I'm sure.
And
Amanda, I knew her, the old Daniel, Amanda, I knew her because she was a friend. She was a friend. I was working at Zelda Universe, and she also worked at Zelda Universe.
No,
and she I was looking for someone who had on-screen not necessarily talent, but experience, because she did all of their news videos, all of their weekly Zelda news videos. So she wanted to do a podcast, I wanted to do a podcast, and it worked out for like 10, 12 episodes. But it was really cool because every episode had like, we tried to have like different special famous guests, and we had people from like different TV shows, and one person who was in like 3 or 4 of the Harry Potter movies, which is really cool. Not a main character, kind of like he played like Harry Potter's double in like a few scenes, but like
because the real Harry Potter had to go do the school work.
Yeah, so like you seen like the back of his head when like that Dobby scene or whatever.
good haircut though.
Yeah. Anyways, the point of the story, Game Informer was looking for someone who knew all about Zelda. So what do? They go to the #1 or one of the #1 Zelda websites in the world, Zelda Universe, and they ask the person who is, the person who does all of their Zelda news videos, because who would know more about Zelda news than someone who does weekly Zelda news videos for the largest Zelda website in the world. So they asked Amanda to come on and be on that interview, which is really cool, and it made me really excited for her and really jealous. So I immediately messaged her when I found out, and I was like, hey, congratulations, I hate you.
Congrats, I hate you.
I remember you telling me this.
It was
just came into like our chat.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer than that though.
That's almost like how we became friends. Because I was a Zelda Informer at the time, and then I made a video, and Jesse messaged me. It was like, I was gonna make a video just like this, and then you made this video, so I hate you.
But it was friendly.
No, it was friendly.
Yeah.
It was in a friendly way.
Yeah. it was a big compliment, basically.
No, it was but it was very funny. It was
yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, now I will be on your channel.
Okay, so this is funny. This is another funny comment, getting off topic. On Facebook, I posted a picture from Instagram, and it like reposted to Facebook. And our friend Orion, who was one of the famous people that was on the Nerdvana podcast, and he was also on this podcast. Yeah, so he's been on both. He also did the old Zelda mailbag that I had. Anyways, he is an actor and a musician, and his new band released their new album recently, and he changed his display picture on Facebook to a picture of him like on stage with his shirt off singing, and he liked he liked my the picture that I went from Instagram, and I seen it, and I seen the picture that he had, and I was like, dude, Orion, do you spend all day doing sit-ups or ab workouts? And then he commented back and was like, haha, not at all. Try to keep up with a few push-ups, and I don't know, it was just really funny because, yeah, off topic, but...
Oh, he's one of those people who just has a good metabolism.
No, because I always assumed he was in shape because, you're always on tour and like on stage and stuff, but it's like, with the shirt off, I'm like, why is he just not a model? Like, he could just go to Victoria's Secret. That is Orion.
Hey, Jesse. Oh, I love him. He's such a great guy, and he liked my meme, so I put a meme on Facebook.
Yeah. All right. So, are we all done with Skyward Sword?
Yes.
Yeah. So, going around, They made a special amiibo for Twilight Princess, which was Wolf Link. They wanted to make a new amiibo for Majora's Mask 3D, but they couldn't figure out how they would necessarily use the amiibo in Majora's Mask. And the amiibo they were going to make specifically for Majora's Mask was Skull Kid. But because they didn't, they had pre-production of the amiibo, like a Skull Kid amiibo does exist somewhere, but because they couldn't figure out how to use it in the game, like what in the world would Skull Kid do in the game? Like, I would vote for giving you Majora's Mask, and then like you just getting like super powerful or something. But anyways, because they couldn't figure out what to do with it, they just made it a statue. And that's why in certain copies you would get the Skull Kid statue. They did the same thing with Wind Waker. They wanted to include amiibo stuff. They made a Ganondorf amiibo, and then they couldn't figure out what to do with it, so they were like, we'll just make it a statue. And then they made Twilight Princess, and they finally figured out how to use the amiibo. And then we got a cool Wolf Link. So if we get a cool
it's a beautiful
amiibo for Skyward Sword, my vote is a Loftwing. And then instead of, I don't know what it would do, like maybe you could tap it and then like it would just like fly down to wherever you're at and pick you up instead of you having to like use the statues, because that's what you were talking about.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, so like
it'll be cool.
Yes,
the amiibo. Or
that would be something too. Like if you tap the amiibo,
it recharges the battery in your Wii remote.
So if you tapped the amiibo on like the Fi amiibo, it would like similar to the Pokeballs with Pokemon Let's Go. Like the Pokemon exists, like Mew is inside the Pokeball. You have to transfer it to the game. So maybe if you tap the amiibo, Fi's soul, like Mew's soul, will just go inside the amiibo, and then you don't have to worry about Fi popping up and being like, hey, battery. If they did that, everyone who bought the game would pay like $30 just to get that amiibo, so they didn't have to listen to Fi.
But here's the thing, is that the Joy-Cons don't use AA batteries.
Here's another thing.
Bananas.
You potentially have to listen to twice as many your batteries going dead because you have three batteries now.
I think they learned from that with Wind Waker HD and just gave you a little battery indicator. And that was way better, honestly. Just a little...
Way.
Alright,
Way
so
better.
My vote is Skyward Sword. You guys?
Huh?
What are we voting for?
Amiibo. What amiibo do you want?
What'd you vote for?
You mean Loftwing?
Yeah, like my vote is the Loftwing amiibo. Like, would you want the Groose, the Fi,
I want
for Skyward Sword.
I think Fi would be
the
really
Stritch,
cool,
Callan?
No. The creepy hand from the toilet.
Yeah.
The ghost hand.
Is it the same one from Majora's Mask? Let's theorize.
Maybe.
No. Because the one in Majora's Mask is corporeal.
The one in Majora's Mask is...
Yes, sorry, your mic cut out.
It's descendant.
Oh, that makes sense. All I know is it's corporeal, and the one in Skyward Sword is ghost corporeal.
Give us amiibo of Skyward Sword Zelda or Gaepora.
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say Zelda because she's like one of my favorite Zelda.
Do it.
Story-wise.
Nintendo, can you hear me?
Don't you have Miyamoto on speed dial?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Jesse, call
Wasn't
Miyamoto.
Wasn't he at your door like 30 podcasts ago or something?
All right, here.
Don't tell all my secrets. Also, I just want to put out there, YKW3 Tempura in the chat.
Yeah.
Says pay $15 to not have fun until your battery's getting low.
Yeah. They say Gearhim. Gearhim would be cool.
He also said
Gearhim would be really cool. Gearhim would be really cool. He also said Daniel, Bo, Baniel, Fee, Fi, Fo, Faniel, Manuel, Daniel. So I'm not sure what to make of this chat right now.
All right. So we have to finish this so we can go to the next.
Right now, and so be right back.
We need to finish this and then go to the other thing.
Yes.
So,
you can finish without me because I haven't played Skyward.
All right.
So I think we're getting the consensus is that we're getting a set of amiibo like we did. Breath of the Wild, just a whole bunch of them.
Oh yeah, that
5 Fofum. We're gonna get Girahim. We're gonna get Loftwing and Skyward Sword Zelda.
instead of the
we've
4
already got Link.
champions.
We've already got Link. So.
Yeah, instead of the 4 champions, we would get 4 of these. Like,
oh, Impa amiibo. That's a good suggestion too.
okay, so
There's too many good characters.
one change I would love to see in Skyward Sword is, what did Hylia look like? It's implied that she looked like Zelda. That's why Zelda always looks similar, because when she's reincarnated, similar to Link always being reincarnated. But like, I would like to see what the goddess looked like, and it's implied. It's implied when Skyward Sword Zelda puts on like the white dress towards the end, and she looks all like clean. I guess, is that the right word? I don't know. But,
Yeah.
Hold on, give me a second.
Yeah.
I saw one.
I mean, there's like the goddess statues.
Yeah, and
So
there's
that's probably
there's
just, like,
That's just, that's
gray and made of stone, and
there is
Yeah.
the comic that has her, but that's not really canon.
something like this. I'm gonna put it in our chat. This is something I think she could look like. It doesn't look a lot like Zelda. Here, give me a second too. Discord,
it's
then you
Ilia. Ilia looks. Oh, see, look, Ilia. That's the goddess, Hylia.
Wow. Wow. That's
Alright.
interesting.
I guess when Ilia gets back, we will begin discussing the big new Zelda game, the one that Game Informer hinted at coming sooner than we thought, and why we already knew all of this. I literally made a video a year ago that explained all of this, and people are acting like it's a huge surprise, and it annoys me, because I'm like, they literally said the same thing a year ago.
Is this the video I'm thinking of?
The 2018, 2019, 2020 video that you edited?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we literally made the video talking about all of it. And then in that video, we made a bunch of predictions based off of the interviews, one of which being Hyrule Warriors would get like an enhanced port for the Switch. That came true. The other was either Twilight Princess, or not Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword or Ocarina of Time would be remade. And it turns out it was Skyward Sword. So like 2 predictions we made turned out to be true. And the other predictions aren't really predictions, because it's us saying what Nintendo said about the next game being multiplayer. So just waiting on Ilia. Princess Ilia.
Oh yeah, Daniel.
What?
This is that picture in Discord.
Also,
What?
for those who have been keeping up,
Like I posted in our like a number.
I
yeah.
I am 222 pounds.
Yeah. And she's abusing it.
It's
Meow. Bring back the cat.
it's the crazy cats from Skyward Sword. What are they called?
Oh yeah, demon kitties. That's what we call them.
The demon kitties.
Demon kitty.
The cat. Chat. Put F's in chat.
All right, Ilia's back. We can begin talking about the next Zelda. Ilia,
Or that took way longer than it should
Ilia,
have.
you're in all black. You look like you're all gothed out.
Well, I'm wearing sweatpants that are black and a GameOverJesse t-shirt.
Yeah. You're
Trust
going,
me, I'm not God.
Why do you sound like you just went out of the room and took 20 shots of tequila and then came back?
I ran into some complications.
Oh no, tequila.
Where's my water? No.
See,
Hold on.
everything she says just furthers my suspicion.
no. So like that scream that she did is similar to what they do in the goth music. So she's proving my theory here. She's going through her punk rock phase. That's what it is.
I remember that phase.
The next
I just
episode
listened
of
to a
Friends
lot of
with Friends,
Radiohead.
talk about.
Welcome to Friends with Friends.
Yeah. Welcome to Friends with Friends. There's a pretty neat TV show called How I Met Your Mother. And
Meet my mother again.
and it's pretty rad. It's got some fun moments. There she is.
It's good, actually, except for, you know, I have some issues with some of the last season.
No, I thought the girl that they had was like really pretty, and she had like huge eyes, like they were ginormous. She looked like
I liked her. I thought she was great.
No, I did too. She looked like an anime character though.
Okay.
A little bit. A little bit.
All right, we can start on the next Zelda game. We lost 10 people getting carried away on Skyward Sword.
Hyrule Gamer says, I could see Daniel's at Gotham High School. Oh, I gotta tell you right now, Gamer was bad. I had the whole like swept bangs thing happening, and it's all coming back. And then I had like the ripped black jeans.
Oh man!
Oh my!
You look like
emo.
You look like Spider-Man 3 Toby.
Oh my god, I do.
So you look like emo Toby, perfect.
It was a bad couple of years of my life. It was pretty cringy to look back on.
Today, I've gotten like 100 notifications on a single tweet. It was IGN posted like an article like how to get Mew and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, and I retweeted it and I was like, buy a Pokeball.
Spend $50.
And like it's literally gotten like so many people have been following me and like retweeting it and stuff just because it's like buy a Pokeball, and I'm like, well, I should do this more often. Like, take these sort of clickbait articles and just explain it in one sentence. Like, what happened to Tobey Maguire after Spider-Man 3? It's like, he lost his job. Like,
he lost his job.
Yeah.
I'm actually not really laughing at this joke as much as Daniel's reaction. you just squealed like a stuck pig.
It's funny.
Yeah. All right, so next. All right.
What are we doing? I'm sorry, I feel like I just ran a mile.
It's the second news story about the soon Zelda. All right.
Okay.
This is gonna be another one with me explaining, so get ready.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Elia Rose. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. And you know what? If you're a fan of videos like this, you should totally subscribe.